Welcome, welcome, welcome to Magical Experiment. I'm Taylor Ellwood, and joining me is the amazing, powerful Sheena Witter. And today we're going to be stepping into terrain that every magician, every empath, every energy worker must learn to navigate. Sheena, what are we diving into today?
We are talking about the hidden harvest. So these are the unseen forces, contracts, entities, egregores, everything that is draining and feeding on your energy while you're focused on something else. So this is about tracking unconscious rituals, object spaces, thought forms that are quietly siphoning your power. It's happening a lot these days. It's becoming it's becoming less unseen. So it's a really important topic.
Yeah, it is. In fact, we've actually written a couple of articles about it this month. And I'll include links in the show notes after this gets posted. But if you've been reading those articles, you already know we've touched on some of this very topic, and we're going to continue to explore it here today. What most people think of when they think of energetic leaks is they think of it as overwhelm or burnout. And sometimes what's happening is that we're actually what's feeding on us is something that we've made ourselves, a spell that was cast in desperation, a tool we never properly cleared, or even a lingering imprint from a group or teacher we've long since outgrown. And often it's subtle. You might think you're feeling off because of bad sleep, but the real culprit might be a room in your house that still holds a grief frequency, or a magical tool that carries someone else's energy signature. It's kind of fascinating because this actually came up for me, the other day. Um, and you and I were talking about it a little bit because I'm in the process of looking for a new roommate at my home. And one of the suggestions that you said to me was, well, have you thought about actually doing a clearing for your home, of previous people? And I'd done it last year, but I hadn't done it since. I was like, good idea. Because maybe that was creating some of the resistance toward finding something. So even something little like that you don't that you might not think of otherwise could be an example. And before we go any further, I do notice that we had one person join us, and hopefully more people will. So Robin, welcome. And of course, if you have any questions or comments as we're going through this, feel free to drop those in. We love having interaction with people.
Absolutely. So we are looking at, you know, on the personal level, we're also looking at it more and more on a collective level, especially like being in community, being in areas where there's a lot of energy being created. Um, so it's always really interesting to be able to open ourselves up to being able to track and just seeing what's going on and where our energy is going. Perfect. Thank you.
Exactly. And Robin said, hi, y'all, listening while working. Awesome. I support that. It's always good to get something productive out of the work after all. And what's not more productive than actually getting a chance to connect with two experienced magicians who are doing their work? Now, that's exactly it. And here's the interesting thing. Like, when we look at it, like there is a lot of stuff that is put out there that can kind of harness and grab your energy or your attention or whatever else in ways that you might not even think about. Like a great example would be Facebook. Facebook is designed at this point for doom scrolling. You get onto Facebook, and it's easy to just kind of get sucked into that stream of status updates. And that's an example of an energetic suck that it really might not even be like magical all that much, but it's something that's nonetheless been designed to grab your attention and hook you in certain ways and keep you fixated on that instead of doing something more productive. And really the question that I always kind of come away with is, who does it benefit when we're kind of caught up in this experience where somebody or something is draining or grabbing our energy. Who does it benefit? It always benefits somebody. It just may not be you.
Yeah, and there's so many great real life examples, both at like the very physical level and also kind of like that energetic level. Is like, how many times have you been part of a group where, you just feel drained afterwards, or that there's an energetic mixed mass, or you just have this like energetic sense that something is really off. Um, and depending on how you can read and perceive energy, sometimes you can see it, sometimes you can sense it. I think, as magicians and extrasensory people, we tend to have a wider sense as to what's happening. And one of the times where it became really real for me was I was at Burning Man. I was not on anything. That I always have to caveat that. Um, but it was before we were there for build camp, and it was kind of before everything got started. And I was wandering around the playa, and there was like this one area. I didn't know what it was. It was my first time, so I'm like, I was totally new and just kind of open to everything that was there. And there was just this structure that I could see off in the distance, and it was like it everything in my body just told me like I should not be going over there. Like I had a full visceral reaction, and I had no idea why. So I kind of just noted that and kind of carried on. And the first night of the burn, um, I discovered that it was a thunderdome. And, it is a very, very high energy. People are attacking each other with foam, but, there's people like hanging off the bars. It's very Mad Max. It's very like, it's super, super high energy. And I was looking up and I could just see like this really big, huge, black, energetic vortex. Like all of the energy was going up into the sky and disappearing. And again, I was not on anything, but it's just like, and then looking around, Burning Man's a beautiful place to go if you want to just like see how energy works in different ways. Because you also had different camps that were very purposely and consciously doing very different things, and how the energy looked different and how it was spreading out. So it's a good practice if you ever have the opportunity, or really any group, um, big group situations, whether that's like a sports game or a protest. Just being aware of the energy is really important. Where is your energy going when you're attending these events?
Yeah, it is really important. I mean, and I've definitely had that experience myself. I've never gone to Burning Man, but I have had the experience of going to different conventions and conferences, other experiences. And it's kind of interesting because really, with those kinds of experiences, it takes on an energy of its own. I don't know if you're familiar with Hakeem Bey's temporary autonomous zone, but the idea is that basically you're entering into a temporary zone when you go into like a conference or a convention that takes on a life of its own. And I kind of think of it as an egregore because it has its own existence, its own life force. And in a very real way, each person is contributing to that. Now I say all that, and I want to caveat here that like don't just be like all of a sudden like, oh, I can't go to an event now because I don't know what's going to happen or my energy's going to get drained. That's not what I'm saying. Just saying it's good to be aware of kind of the realities, and part of it is ultimately about retaining your own energetic and spiritual sovereignty. You can go to an event and have an amazing time and experience and contribute to that community energy and still know that like, hey, at the end of the day, I'm going to need to take back what is mine. What is me. I don't want this to necessarily leave a hook in me, even if it's a well-intentioned hook. It still can be something that ends up becoming a drain.
Yeah. So what we're actually going to do later on this uh, podcast is do a source lineage check, which is a really simple, easy way to kind of be looking at the energy of things like that. And also, it is about sovereignty because we're looking at how do we want to be involved and into what extent consciously. And there is part of the reason that energy harvesting works is because there is so much power and magic available when people gather. And we saw that last Saturday when we did our alchemy lab. Like the ability to have magicians gather and be able to converse and exchange and, help help each other with our magical experiments, like that is a group field that we temporarily created that, it does have a special magic in holding all of its own. When we are in group together, we kind of join this bigger group nervous system. So there's lots of really beneficial reasons to be doing group energy work or group magic. It's just making sure that whatever the energy of the group is in alignment with what you want and what you want as a conscious sovereign magician.
That's right. I mean, at the end of the day, you're responsible for your energy, your presence, your magic, and the way that shows up. And a lot of times it can be easy to give away that responsibility. That's why it's important to really examine closely, like who it is that you're working with or what it is that you're getting engaged in. Because unfortunately, the reality is too, there are sometimes some books, some teachers, etc., that can not necessarily, they might even have the best intention, but not necessarily fully recognize that what they're doing is actually has some potential problematic issues. And so it's a really important thing to be aware of. And of course, then there are sometimes experiences where people deliberately try to take or drain your energy. I mean, psychic vampirism is a great example of that, where there are some people who quote unquote identify as psychic vampires, and their goal is to drain you energetically and emotionally, and they might even get off, for example, on causing conflict or creating drama or doing stuff like that. So that's another example of kind of that's like the opposite end of the spectrum in some ways, but it's still just as relevant.
Hmm. Yeah, I think we should introduce our energy signature scan. So this, if you have the ability, we're going to invite you to either have an object that you want to explore or a relationship, a space, maybe it's a group. And we're going to do a scan that is a little bit more somatic. So if you can, I invite you to close your eyes and do this live with us. And if not, you can absolutely check out the recording. And we will also have instructions printed out below when we post. So I'm going to invite you to take a moment and get still and place your feet on the ground if you can. And really just like feel yourself like anchored into your physical space. And take a deep breath, like deep, deep into your belly. And another. Now either hold the object in your hands or bring someone or something to your mind. Just hold it lightly and let your attention rest there. And allow your thoughts to relax as you're actually having that attentional field in your body. And we're going to gently ask ourselves, what is the energetic signature of this thing? You might see something, hear something, however you perceive extrasensory information. And whatever shows up is absolutely perfect. It might come up really loud. It might be almost silent. Um, it might come up with a quality. We're just going to allow that energetic signature to get bigger, to get amped up, so you can actually feel it wherever it happens to be in your body. We're going to be using our bodies as tuners. So tuning into the energetic signature, the essence of this item or this person or this group. I'm going to let your mind just get a little quieter and allow your body to speak. We're going to get really curious. Now, does it feel warm or cold? Is it expansive or does it contract? Do you notice like a pull or a push, or is there a numbness? Is it very loud or quiet? I'm just taking a moment to allow your sensations to arise in your body. Now we're going to ask, is this energy nourishing me or feeding on me? Does this support my evolution or distort it? You might get a whisper or a gut feeling. Maybe there's some tension in your heart or in your jaw. Whatever you are sensing is your system speaking to you. And now, just allow yourself to honor whatever's coming up. This is how we start to tell the difference between what belongs to us and what doesn't, between energy that's aligned to us and what isn't. I'm going to invite you to open your eyes and just notice what came up for you. Uh, if you're able to do this exercise live and you want to kind of share what the experience was like, what you noticed, that would be excellent. What did you notice, Taylor?
I was working with this bell, and what I noticed was just this very clear energy, clear presence, this ringing that pervaded my being. And yeah, I keep this bell by my desk. It's something that I like to ring occasionally to kind of clear energy out, and that's what I felt.
Excellent. So you got affirmation that your tool is supporting and servicing you.
That's right. I did.
Be- Beautiful.
We haven't had any response yet. We only have a couple people on here, but if they share, I will let you know. What about you? I mean, you were obviously leading it, but can you give us an example of like something that you've done this with before?
Yeah. I do like to do this with objects. And objects kind of come into our homes and our houses and just become part of the background. And I noticed, actually, this wasn't that long ago. It's kind of been in the inkling of the back of my head, and every time I focus on it, it's like, oh, I have to get rid of that, and I haven't. But I had a bouquet of beautiful handmade tissue paper flowers. They were made by a relative of mine. They're absolutely gorgeous. They're my birth flower. Um, but my relationship with that relative has always been really, really challenging and very negative, and absolutely one of those people who would qualify as kind of that vampiric energy. And I didn't realize that every time I was walking by it, I would feel like, and just even unconsciously notice it, even if my attention wasn't directed toward it, that I just start feeling agitated. And I finally looked into it, and it was just like it was just so immediate, and it was just so obvious that it was, just every time it was just that little bit of noticing, that little bit of noticing. So I cleared them and I actually gave them away. It didn't going. I do a lot of trash magic, so I kind of look into like, well, what do we do with the objects and things like that. And it didn't feel like that was what needed to happen. It just because the artistry and the beauty of the object itself, like it wanted to live its highest expression. So I cleared it and cleansed it, and I passed it on to a friend, and it made their day. They were like absolutely thrilled. It was exactly what they were looking for, or they didn't know that they were looking for, and it brings them an immense amount of joy.
I want to share an example of an experience that I had that is kind of similar to that. And it's a good example of where somebody would actually intentionally do this and why a protocol like this could be so helpful. Years ago, I had an acquaintance send me some gifts. One of them was a book that he had written, and then there was like this little statue. And it was kind of odd. We didn't exactly get along, and things between us have been a little rough. But I kind of wondered, was this kind of like a bury the hatchet kind of gift, something like that. So, at the time I didn't think about it. But within like a couple days, I was working on writing a book at the time. Within a couple days, I noticed that I started feeling creatively blocked, like I couldn't write, and that seemed really odd to me because I write every day pretty much. Not hard for me at all to get into that zone. So after going through a couple days of this, I was like, okay, something's going on, and I diagnosed it. And I kind of did something similar along these lines, and we're going to be exploring this more in the upcoming class. We're going to tell you about in a little bit. But what I ended up doing is I realized that the statue that the person had sent was cursed, and it was designed to siphon off my creativity and give it to that person. So what I did is I took it out of my house and I brought it down to a running stream, and I put it in the stream to purify it and cleanse it, but also to remove it. Because I knew that if I held on to it, that was what it was going to do. And once I realized that, it was like, I'm not going to continue to support this. And lo and behold, I got my creativity back that very day. I started writing again. It was a good example of how someone can do something like that. And it was a sneaky example because what they were doing is they were using the act of gift giving as a way to do it. And if you think about it, gift giving gets past the threshold. So if you have magical protections around your house, which I definitely do, that usually will take care of any problematic stuff that's coming your way. But gift giving is a particularly interesting form because really what happens is when you receive that gift, you're receiving it, it's going past your threshold, you're allowing it in. And at that point, it's past the protection. And that's exactly what happened. So my creativity was being harvested by that person until I recognized what was happening and took it back.
Mm. Yeah, I'm glad you brought up the aspect of gift giving because I hadn't quite looked at it from that angle before.
Well, you know me, I come up with all kinds of interesting angles for looking at things. So,
Yeah. And so you mentioned our class that's coming up on the 24th on a Tuesday. Um, and we're going to be looking at like everything that we mentioned in our articles, all the different types of like parasites and loops and the digital world, thought forms,
forms,
egregores.
yep, outdated spells, draining spaces, and even stuff that's set up where, like, a good example of this would be like spell books or stuff where they have like prefab sigils and things along those lines popped into those books for you to use. That's a good example of something where it can actually end up being a harvest. You're doing that sigil going along and you're thinking like, hey, this is going to help me get something, but something feels off. Like, what's going on? What's happening? Your energy being
Yes.
harvested.
And that is happening more and more. Uh, so what we're going to be looking at, we're looking at it we're really kind of trying to track energy through dimensions. And we mean dimensions really literally. For the course, we're going to be looking at, our 5D level, which is the Akashic field. So this is where like soul contracts live, timelines, oath, past life issues, because a lot of what may feeding us may not have originated in this lifetime. Um, so you might be unknowingly like feeding an old vow or stuck in a karmic loop. You do have access to your Akashic records always. So this is one of the levels. I've created a rather exhaustive protocol we will be learning, and it does track all of these 5-dimensional issues and the Akashic work. That's my background and experience. Um, we'll be looking at the fourth dimensional field. So this is your mental and emotional layers. This is the astral. This is where unspoken agreements hide, thought forms, servitors, leftover emotional charge. Um, so this is where we're a lot of the level where a lot of the energy harvesting happens. Um,
I'm kind of curious. Can you give an example of like some of your Akashic work that you've done?
yeah, I've done quite a bit over the years. I think one of the ones that has stood out for the most for me was I had a mother come in whose son was on the spectrum. He was leaving the house in the middle of the night, like getting up and opening locked doors. He was 6 years old and wandering away. And he'd been brought back by the police several times. Um, and he'd wandered away when he was staying at her parents' house. And like they just didn't know what to do. Um, and in a reading that we looked at a previous past life, his most recent previous last life, which he was still processing because he is so young. Um, and there was some portals open, and there was a few other things that were going on in that last time that were bleeding over. And he was actually both traveling astrally in his dream state and kind of being called out to solve this the contract that he had created in his past lifetime. So we kind of went in and we did a clearing work. As part of the dowsing protocol, I am including some clearings for each of these levels with you, so you're empowered to do this work yourself. Um, and within a week, he was sleeping through the night. He's never tried to leave again. He just kind of started blooming. He's actually in karate now as well. And she was just saying, like, his life completely changed. He was able to be himself and to develop in this lifetime, in this incarnation as, you know, his highest expression, because he didn't have the siphoning, he didn't have the portals open, he didn't have these unfulfilled contracts that he was trying to solve.
Hmm, that's a great example. Of course, we're also dealing with the level of the mental and emotional layers, which can be a little slippery and tricky. That's where the unspoken agreements hide. Those old thought forms, the servitors that got hungry, the leftover emotional charges from spells, group rituals, even wishful cravings and relationships that have gone sour. All of that can be a feeling and an experience that comes through you, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's yours. And when you're caught up in those mental loops, or you're stuck emotionally in your body, it can be really powerful and helpful to move that energy, release what is not yours, which is otherwise hooking onto you and holding on to you, so that you can move on and fully live your life. And I mean, I'll share a recent example. I was at a psychic fair, and there was somebody that I knew there, and that person tried to hook me. Again, it'd been a while since I'd seen that person, and I knew what I was doing. I knew how to shield and protect myself, but it was interesting to feel that attempt and to recognize that that was something that was going on, and be like, no, I'm not going to participate in that harvest anymore. I had been harvested enough as it was, and I didn't need to go through that again. And so it's a good example of like learning how to recognize these things, seeing like where somebody's trying to hook us, whether it's on a spiritual level, an emotional level, a mental level, physical level, sexual level, any of those levels. It's really important to recognize that and really ask ourselves from a place of sovereignty, is this something I want to participate in? Because you always have the right to say no.
Absolutely. And that's, I think, part of doing this work and why magical experiments and your work specifically really spoke to me from the beginning was what you're doing with magical experiments. It's like you are not just saying, here's a sigil, go do it. Everything that you do, you have like the reasoning behind that you very transparently share. And you're, and now we're teaching people how to be the experimenters, be the creators, to figure out their own systems and learn how to do that and to adapt them. I think that that's incredibly powerful. I think that that's the kind of magic that we need, is that sovereign magic.
I agree. And yes, you're right. We are teaching that now, which is, I'm really excited about that because we're here to share ideas and tools and methods and encourage you to delve deeper and embody your understanding and not rely on us or anyone else. I mean, one of the things that I always say in my books and I say on here, and I think it's important to say again and again and again, it's you are your own authority. Like me and Sheena are guides. We're guides that are meant to, we're here to help, facilitate, and give you some direction and provide some insights. But neither of us wants to be gurus telling you what to do. I mean, that's not our purpose. That's not what we're here for. We're here to help with the evolution of magic. That's the philosophy that's at the core of magical experiments. And it's actually one of the reasons why I know you and I do so well together, because it's something that we both that's inherently part of us. Like it's interesting because you and I met a little over a year ago now. Through a class that I was teaching at the time, and then we've gotten to know each other pretty well since then, and in many different ways. And one of the things that struck me about you right from the beginning, and I think this is really important to note, is that curious mind, that desire to learn and discover and to make what you're doing your own thing. And that's something I really respect. And that's what I want for anyone who is taking my classes or our classes or anything else along those lines or reading our books, is to explore from that place of like, how do I make this my own? Because when you make it your own, it is yours and you are in your full sovereign spiritual expression.
Yeah. It's a good segue into our source lineage check. Um, so this is something that I developed after quite a few painful missteps, as a new self-taught magician. It's quick, it's effective. Yeah, like I said, it's one of the reasons that I was drawn to magical experiments. So it's relatively quick and easy. I would, I've kind of written it as a bit of a dowsing protocol. Um, so if you are using a spell or a symbol or a teaching or a guided meditation or anything, so many, channelers are using, they're saying that, oh, well, I'm connected to spirit or I'm working through this entity or that entity. Like it's really the Wild West. Um, so this can just be a really good way of checking in and seeing if it's in alignment with you. It doesn't necessarily mean that like it's bad or malicious or anything like that. It just might not be in resonance with you and what you want to experience. Um, so the question, and honestly, do it for us. Do it for our Substack. Do it if you're looking at taking the class or of ours or coming to, our alchemy lab, which was so much fun. But absolutely, like, run it on us.
Yeah,
Uh,
totally. Please write on us. I strongly encourage that. Like I say, you know, at the end of the day, I think it's the most important thing you can do is be sure that you're operating from a place where your sovereignty as a spiritual person is respected. So this is a great way to do that. And so we have certain
yeah,
questions here. What's the first one?
yeah. Does this carry the energetic imprint of its creator? And the answer to this will usually be yes, because when we create something, it is expressed through our beings into the material world. Unless the personal associations have been intentionally removed, or the creator didn't draw in any of their personal life force as a part of their workings or magical creations. Um, this is just a very basic attuning to the, whether it's this teaching or the symbol or a teaching to that itself. Um, the next questions really help you identify if it is going to be useful for you. And the second question is that creator lineage or source aligned with my greatest sovereign experience? Is that creator lineage or source aligned with my greatest sovereign experience? You can play around with this. You can adapt it to a specific goal or desire or your highest self or whatever you like, but you really want to be very clear on what it is aligning to.
Mm-hmm.
And it could be something like, is it aligning to my desire to learn X skill? And they might think, yes, it aligns perfectly. But if you're more intentional with the question and it's, that is it aligned to like my highest sovereign expression with this skill, they might say, oh no. Okay, well, maybe there's some other things that you can do or some other resources that would be more beneficial for you.
I got the next question. Am I unknowingly in service to someone or something else's energy through using this? A really good question to ask. So for example, if you open up a spell book and you see like a prefab sigil put in there and words to chant and everything else, okay, it's been designed, it's easy to execute on, but is there something going on unknowingly? Is someone else's energy is my energy going to be siphoned off and used in some way unknowingly on my part and knowingly on their part? And so again, this is a really good question to ask and consider with everything. And yes, that includes all my books and classes and everything else. So run it on me, run it on Sheena, run it on anyone else. Because again, this is about claiming your sovereign expression.
Yeah. And
Fine.
another
Oh,
fun place to look at this is marketing. I do have a background in marketing, and one of the reasons that I kind of got out of that is like, if I don't believe in it, I can't write that copy. I can, but there's just something in me that can't do it. But especially when you're looking at, oh, this magical program, that experience, like marketing is a spell. It is a spell that is designed for a very specific result. And sometimes you're in alignment with what the results of that might be, and sometimes you're not. So it can actually save you a lot of money and time. You just go, is this aligned with my sovereign experience? Am I unknowingly in service? It's like, you get it. It's simple. We don't have to needlessly complicate.
yeah,
And the
that's
last
right.
question,
Okay, you go.
uh, the last question is, are there any intentional siphoning or redirection methods present in the architecture? And things can be a siphon. It can like literally redirect your energy or your focus. So just knowing that. And then you can make an informed decision whether or not you want to do it. And you might. There's kind of no judgment. It's just you are aware of what's happening.
It seems like a great set of questions to ask, and certainly something that I've approached both in my own experience and in asking other people to ask those questions. And I've definitely been that person who's had his energy siphoned at times. And I think it's really important to recognize that and be like, well, what's really going on here? I've gotten a lot more careful about it after a few experiences of my own. So, and that's basically really what this Hidden Harvest class is about. I mean, this class actually came about because of a comment I made where I was talking about like an experience that I had where I'd read a book and done a sigil, and I'm like, but it felt like something was being drawn away from me. And so we kind of went down this very interesting rabbit hole because we're doing a lot of focus around attention, energy, and like how it's directed. And so in this class that's coming up, and yes, we're talking about marketing. Let's just be fully transparent here. And again, you can run it by yourself and see if this is something you want to do or not. But in this class, we're going to be talking about how to close loops, end contracts, and rewrite the energetic agreements that you didn't necessarily realize you were making, whether that's in relationship or your career, friendships, family, or just your life in general. Could even be past lives. It could be all kinds of different things, but being able to track that and say, is this something I really want to agree to now? Can be absolutely essential. And so what we're going to do is we're going to teach you how to scan the 5D, the 5 dimensions, navigate the 4th dimensional noise, all that crazy marketing mimetic stuff that's going on right now, and apply an in-depth reading and clearing protocol to anything, books, tools, teachings, classes, you name it, so that you're not casting someone else's spell by accident.
Yeah. And this is the work that we do for ourselves. It's kind of like a core for magical hygiene. And going back to like your attention and your intention, your current is precious. It's your energy is what you use to create, whether that's magic or in the physical. And you know, we live in like we literally call it the attention economy in social media and stuff like that. It's like we're part of the attention economy, which means there's industries completely dedicated to captivating our attention and redirecting it for as long as possible. And that's because that's our creative power, that's our magical power. Um, so, we think that it's time to stop feeding what doesn't serve and just start building alignment, figuring out where we want our attention and intention to go so we can be more magically effective.
And that's one of the reasons that we're both on Substack, because it is an opportunity to create and connect. And it's what motivates me to do all the creative work that I do, and certainly I see that with you as well, Sheena. So we're going to be doing this class, The Hidden Harvest, on June 24th. It's going to be at 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 8 p.m. Eastern. And you're going to come out of it with a protocol that you can return to again and again anytime things feel sticky, foggy, or off. We're going to have information below in the show notes. So after this is wrapped up, we'll have it there. And we are hoping that you'll come and check it out. We've already had a few signups, so we're super excited about that. We're looking forward to connecting with all of you who do show up there. We can help you to run this process. And again, run the protocol that we just shared with you. Like, this is a great example to use it on us, use it on other situations, because that in and of itself will tell you a lot right there about where you're putting your attention and energy toward.
Yeah. I think that's the key. Um, and I think if there was one thing that I could leave us with is just the idea that we have the power within ourselves and the authority and the permission to be sovereign, to be able to make our own choices, to be able to understand what's going on, and um, to really harness our own attention and magic and creativity in a way that creates opportunities for all of us. So,
Oh, I think that's a good point, and important to remember that we don't have to fight the harvest alone. We just have to learn how to see it. And that's one of the reasons we're running this series. And so hopefully you've come away with some further insights that you can use. And I think with that, we want to thank you for your time, for watching this, and commenting on it and sharing it. We really appreciate all of you being here. And thank you so much.
and if you have any questions or if anything came up through doing the exercises that we shared with you today or on any of the Hidden Harvest posts, please post. Let us know. We love getting into conversation and supporting and just kind of helping contribute to this magical ecosystem that we're creating. So thank you all so much.
All right. Thank you.